Welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast with me, Fred Joyal, where I interview amazing dental practice owners digging into their successes and failures, their insights and hindsights, getting their views on where dentistry is going, and discovering what it took for them to become remarkable. Welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and I am here with Dr. Hema Patel, who is a California dentist who's had a very interesting journey that has led her to practice coaching. And we're going to hear all about it. Of course, I love having remarkable dentists on, and she is certainly one of them. So we're going to hear how she got to where she is and where she's going. Hema, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks for having me here.
So give us the story. How did you get into dentistry? Like, what sparked the interest in dentistry, and then how did that become a career?
Okay, so what attracted me to dentistry was freedom of choosing how much or how little I could work. The business ownership side, being in control and being in charge. That was another one. And the most important one was being in business of helping others. And, that's the great part about dentistry, where you get to help others through your career. And
it's very hard to get that combination. And as a female, to get that combination is even trickier. You can't just pick any business and get all those.
But it started, I grew up in India, Fred. And when you grew up in India, at least 30 years ago, when I was in high school, you had one choice: to be a doctor. Well, you had a second choice.
I've heard that before about Indian parents. Yes.
And you had a second choice to be an engineer. That if you didn't make it to med school.
It's why there aren't many Indians in the Olympics, basically, right? They're all going through their masters and doctorates.
The athletic gene just didn't make it to India for whatever reason. But I was an outlier in that case. I drifted from the mainstream and I became a dentist, so.
And I'm sure that you didn't get ostracized by your family for doing that. You stayed within enough of a range. People call you doctor, so you're okay.
People call me doctor. But to be honest, I guess I wasn't smart enough. I did not make it to med school but in India. But I was happy that I didn't, because to be honest, if I got accepted into med school, I would not have declined it. It's complicated. Being Indian kid in India, making career choices is super complicated. And besides that, the only science topic that I liked was biology, and learning all about human body and physiology and anatomy was fascinating to me. And I knew I was going to be in healthcare in some sort. I never liked playing with numbers. Chemistry was boring to me, and physics was out of my league. And my little world was all about life science, and it was all about the healthcare. And I also was inspired by a local dentist in my small hometown. He practiced in this beautiful building, and he practiced prosthodontics and orthodontics. And I walked by his office almost every day on my way to school. And he would have lines of people outside his door. He was he charged a lot more than all the other dentists in my hometown, but people always wanted to go there. And in the middle of it all, my mom had to have extensive dental work done. And, we went to this dentist, and I was allowed to be backside. And I watched him work chairside. And what I really liked is how he worked, and also the reputation and respect he had within the community. Growing up, I just secretly wanted to be like him. I thought, I could be a dentist. I could have a nice office for myself, and I would have all this reputation. And also, as I grew older, I had to make career choices, and then I realized that it's like freedom of choosing, how much or how little you could work. You can have better balanced lifestyle, you can have business ownership and all of it. So that it was kind of important. I think there's always someone who you look up to, that help you make that career choices. And I think that dentist was one of that. One of the reasons that I wanted to be a dentist.
Well, that was
So
going to be one of my questions, was who first inspired you?
yeah,
But that's clearly it. That's very
yeah,
interesting. He charged more
yeah. He
than
charged.
the
Yeah,
average dentist. He had a great office, and he had a line.
he had a line. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so that is inspiring. So you saw dentistry as being able to help people, having a flexible lifestyle,
Yeah,
and having your own business.
and having
And
the own business, and I think I like the respect, and the reputation that you build as being a dentist. As a child, I admire that side of the profession. So yeah,
so
all of it.
suddenly you're in the United States.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I got my there's an interesting story behind that too. I got my permanent residency to be in United States when I was in 11th grade, and I had to make a choice. I decided not to move to US at that age because I did not want to be a new kid in new high school in a new country. I just was comfortable there. I wanted to finish my high school and see what else is out there. So there is no 4-year college concept in India. So you get to apply to the doctoral program right after your 12th grade. So I wanted to finish my 12th grade and my high school and see. I wanted to try my luck there and see if I can get into a good, reputable healthcare program in India. So I finished my 12th grade, and luckily I got really, really good grades. And I thought that if I moved to US at that point, I would have to go to some random community college because I did not know anything about United States or the college. And I would have to take dental admission test and then try to apply to dental school. But if I apply in India and I got into a good program, I would have my admission there. And I did apply, and I actually I got waitlisted into a dental program, but I had an option to start my physical therapy school at that time while I waited. But, I knew that I would get into the dental program because I was really, really close. So, it was obvious. I just couldn't let it go. And, I mean, think about it. If the kids think that getting into a good college is difficult here, check this out. In my state, we had one dental college. It was a reputable one, had 54 dental seats in the population of 40 million people. So this was in 90s. It's probably way over 65 million now. So
okay,
it,
wait, back up.
this
there
was in
were
India. Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
54 practices or
No,
54 class seats in the
seats
class.
seats in the dental college. They
Oh,
only accepted 54 kids.
wow.
Yeah. So it was
Wow.
very competitive. And I had this admission in my hand and I just couldn't let it go. So I just decided to stay back. I thought I would just finish the dental school there. And I did not want to move at that time because I had my admission in my hand. And 5 years later, I finished my dental school and my residency. And then I moved to US. And then I applied to a few major international dental programs here, and then I got accepted into couple, and I chose NYU to get my NYU International for a 3-year program to get my DDS. Um, so I
That's
still
it.
spent 8 years getting my
Yeah, you still
DDS.
had to log all the number of years to
Nope,
get to practice in the US. You just basically went to dental school twice.
I just
Uh,
did it twice, so I was super confident with my clinical skills when I got out of NYU.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And when you repeat every class, so you
yeah,
get pretty
yeah,
good
yeah.
at it.
Yeah, I got
Uh,
pretty good at it.
so I'm always curious about this because uh, I know many dentists who came from various countries. Particularly a lot of dentists came from Iraq and moved to Canada.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and uh, and so your English is very good. Was it? Was your high school teaching you English, or was this? Did you have to add that to your list of things to learn?
It was English is my third language, Fred. I had to my entire school education was in between Gujarati and Hindi, so it was not my high school language. It was just one of the things that I worked really hard on learning. Yeah, when I moved here.
And just as I'm always fascinated by the number of languages because I have, I've lost track of how many friends I have who are Indian or from India or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and they go, oh, I speak this and this,
yeah,
right? Because you
yeah.
need two languages
You
at
need
least in
to.
India. You need your
Yeah.
local language. What is your local language again?
My local language is Gujarati. I come from a state of Gujarat, which is on the west side of India. It's a little bit north of Mumbai. So that's my local regional language. And then we all know Hindi, which is a national language. And then we all know English because it's international language and we have to know English because so my entire education till high school was in my local language, but then the college education, the doctoral program are all in English because we study the same textbooks as we study here.
Oh,
So
okay.
so it was a big switch when I went to dental school, and that all of a sudden you're studying everything in English. So
Yeah, that is what happens, I guess.
yeah,
I
yes,
never really understood the transition. I knew that there was
yeah,
an international school that you had to go to,
yeah, yeah.
and I think it varies. Your ability to be accepted varies considerably depending on what country you come from, because they have greater respect for certain countries' dental training than others, I think. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and this is what you take it you take English language or learning a language as one of the thing that you go to dental school, learn anatomy. It's just like you learn English. You just have to put in effort to do that. So it comes natural, and this is what I say: English is a language. It's not a measure of how smart you are, because a lot of times you make that judgment on people that come from other countries. And a lot of times, English is may not be their first language, but that doesn't define how much they know. So
No, and it's a
yeah,
very different language from
yeah,
Hindi and
from anything else, yeah.
yeah, and I still can't say your other language. I'll learn it
Yeah.
eventually. Uh, so now, were you married at this point? Are you like just a crazy adventurer and you just moved to the U.S. by yourself?
No, so I got married in Dallas after I moved, while I was going through the dental school. So my husband was a geeky software engineer, and he had, while I was in NYU, he had his eye in Silicon Valley. And remember the dot-com time between 98 and 2000? That's when I was at NYU.
Oh
So
wow.
he really, really wanted to be in California and Silicon Valley. I was wide open. I had moved a few years ago, so I was open to go anywhere. We made couple visits to California during that time, and I fell in love with the green rolling hills. I'm a huge nature lover, and we're gonna talk about that later. I love outdoors, and I fell in love with all the outdoor opportunities. The state of California, the beauty of the state that I fell for, and as soon as I graduated from NYU, summer of 2000, we packed the bags, we moved to Silicon Valley. And funny thing is, when we moved, everything was dry here. i didn't I
Where's
didn't
all the
realize.
green that I was
Where's all the
looking for?
green? I didn't really. On East Coast we get the summer rain, so everything stays green, I guess, but
Yeah.
everything was dried. But um, I was joking about it. But I mean, regardless, we both still think that moving to California was one of the best key decisions we made, with our lives.
And so where did you practice? How did that happen? What did you become an associate somewhere?
yeah, so I got I was, like I said earlier, I when I went to NYU and I graduated, my clinical skills were so sharp. I was ready to move on. Um, I got my first part-time job as a dentist in one of the large corporations, and I also got offered to cover this dentist at a private practice. She wanted to take a maternity leave, so she asked me to cover her office. And I also joined an HMO office during the same time. So I was working three different jobs on different days. But all of these three jobs were very different from each other. They were different dynamics. And that made me realize what I wanted to do with my career. And most importantly, what I didn't want to do. Right. So, but around the same time, about a year after, I took my own maternity leave, and I quit all the jobs. I started looking for offices to purchase while I was at home. um, I was ready to move on. I'm the biggest box checker. There's there are goods and bads of it, but I know it. But I was ready to move on and wanted to make that next move. So I bought a general dental practice 2 years out of dental school, and I can't say it was the best decision to purchase that practice, but looking at it later on, it wasn't the best one either. I mean, it was not the bad one, but it wasn't the best one. And
So did you know this about yourself, that you're a check in the box, done that, and what's next kind of
no,
person? When did you realize this was who you were?
I
Because this
did not
is
know. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I think my thing was just checking the box. I got this done, got married, went to dental school, purchased a practice, had a baby, and it was all like boom, 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 and moving. I realized that later on, when after I bought the practice, I bought the practice. I knew I had clinical skills, but I wasn't ready to be a leader or the practice owner. Okay. And thank God I recognized that. I hired a practice management consultant right away as soon as I bought the practice, because I didn't know business side of it. I didn't know how to run small businesses. So he taught me the business side of dentistry. He helped us implement the systems in place. And and as soon as we did that, I thought now I knew it all. So I thought, okay, I'm done. I know it. So we grew steadily, but it was a slow growth. So what I did was I went back to UCLA. I did the aesthetic continuum with Brian Lesage. I started doing the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry accreditation. I also went back. I knew that I needed more in-depth clinical skills than what I learned at dental school to grow more. And also, more more you realize that you don't know enough. So I went back to East Coast and I took Pete Dawson's courses. And the reason I went to East Coast was my base foundation was from NYU, and my initial knowledge base was Dawson. And I just started taking some of those classes. But then I realized that traveling to East Coast was a big time commitment to continue to
yeah,
do
you burned
those.
2 days in
Yeah,
travel,
you burned two
basically.
days.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much at that time. Over the time, I realized that there were really good postdoctoral dental education programs near me, and that's when I discovered Spear. And at that time, their Scottsdale campus was brand new. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if you've been there. It's beautiful campus. I just loved everything Spear taught. And and when I went through those program, I got my mini breaks to Scottsdale to be with people who were smarter than me, and it was a whole new world. It was
Yeah.
to be with these people and to know more about dentistry, and know more, or what else I could do with my clinical skills.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Frank Spear,
yeah,
when I saw him speak,
yeah,
as a non-dentist, I would listen to a clinical lecture of his, and I would think, I think I could do that now.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he
yeah.
was such an amazing
Amazing
teacher.
educator. Yeah,
Yeah,
really good educator.
just
Yeah,
because he would take it in such a way that you came away with even a way to talk about it with your patients
yeah,
afterwards.
yes,
A gifted man, and then Imtiaz Manji created the whole facility
yeah.
around it, and
So
and then integrated CEREC training at such a high
with the
level
sea
there, and
dogs, yes,
yeah,
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 yeah.
and now there's implant training and all of that stuff. It's an amazing place. It's
It's
obviously.
beautiful place. It was like mini vacations for me. I loved going there. It
But
was
as you say, the peer group, dentists
yeah,
all really trying to get better and who have gotten really
yes,
good,
yeah, yeah,
to be able to hang out with them
yeah,
and learn the minutia of just how to move through dentistry in a more effective way, and try different techniques and try different technologies, and somebody will just say, have you tried this bonding agent? You go like, I have never heard of that bonding
yeah,
agent, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
stuff like that. So uh, uh,
Yeah, you have.
and go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying you kind of when you go to I mean Spear is what I was exposed to, but there are a lot of other programs. And bottom line is when you go and take these classes, it opens your brain to a whole different level of clinical skills and whole different way of helping people and helping your patients more in depth with more comprehensive care, which is everybody should do, because what you learn in dental school is a basic knowledge, but you got to learn more than that to be able to help more people.
And so, did you find certain procedures or treatments that you were drawn to, that you like doing more than anything?
I I I call my I'm a restorative dentist. I like restorative work. I have taught myself orthodontics after that. So I do some cases with braces. I like Invisalign, or Sure Smile or clear aligner treatment. Basically, I do a number of those, but I like those side. I've never gotten into surgeries. I mean, I learned to place implants, but I never was attracted towards surgeries or endodontics. I think I love the restorative aspect of dentistry. That's my key. Yeah.
Yeah, and the beauty of dentistry is you don't have to get good at everything.
No, no, you don't. You realize that,
There.
I think, after practicing about 5, 6, 7 years, you realize what you like and what you don't like. And the key is to delegate the stuff that you don't like. And I was one of the ones who wanted to do it all. And, when you're new, when you buy new practice, you want to kind of maximize your revenue and you want to do all the clinical treatments. But you start realizing that, what, I'm not enjoying doing molar root canal on tooth number 2 or 15. It takes me 2 hours and I'm still not good at it. I rather refer that and focus my energy and talent into something that I'm really really good at. So
That's a great thing to learn. So now you own your practice. What was the journey from there?
so I owned the so I went and I sharpened my clinical skills through all these programs. We grew a little bit more then, because obviously I was able to implement a lot more procedures within my practice. um, but I knew that I could have been better implementing all my knowledge base, because I knew it, but my team didn't know how to talk about it. So I decided to hire another consulting firm at that time to help us implement all that knowledge base, who also promised coaching. So and it was not Fortune. And I wish I hired Fortune. Where was Laura Boone at that time? I
I
guess
know they were around. You
I
didn't
just
find each
I
other, so
just
you
didn't
just kept
find.
bouncing around.
Yeah,
You're
so
working
still,
your way up. So
yeah, I still didn't find Fortune. But uh, I later on I did attend Fortune seminars. I heard Bernie speak at the beautiful San Jose Country Club, and it was just amazing. And I'll tell you more about it. But um, this was the same similar time, and about 10 years after I had my practice, it grew steadily. my firstborn was going to start high school. Okay, it was about 2012, 2013, and it hit me at that time that I only had 4 years with him, and all I had done in past 15 years was to focus on my career and climb the ladder. But all I wanted now, with my heart, was just to spend more time with my boys. I have two boys, and I just wanted to spend more time. And my older one was gonna be in high school, and I would have 4 years with him. So I just needed. I started thinking that was on. I was continue to be in back of your mind, and I just needed a break from it all. And I talked to my husband, and we had numerous conversations about it. And I finally took a big and bold step to sell my practice and get away from it all. And it was a different phase. It's hard to explain. I think a lot of the mommy dentists who are listeners can relate to this. I didn't think it was a mommy guilt. I thought I just genuinely needed or wanted to spend more time with my boys. And the only way I could have done it was just to sell it and not having to worry about it. I juggled an idea of hiring an associate, but I wanted a total break. So my colleagues thought I was crazy to leave during the peak of my career. But I think this turned out to be the greatest, one of the really good career moves that I made. Yeah. And it was
I,
around, yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
it's a very powerful decision to make, and also, and certainly can be done in dentistry. But of course, everybody else is going to say, no, no, you're still on the way up. You don't want to
Yeah,
step off.
no,
But I like the idea that you're not dismissing it as mommy guilt, but more of like your heart is telling you, you
yeah,
get to follow your heart in life
yeah,
if
yeah,
you're lucky, right? And if you're strong enough. And what I'm getting from you is that you were strong enough to sell your practice, and that's an amazing
yeah,
decision to make, but a very admirable one, I think, because
yeah,
and a lot of people realize it too late that they go, oh my God, I'm taking my kids to college, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
people, I'm going to mention this statistic. They say by the time your child goes off to college, you will have spent 90% of the time that you will spend with them in their entire life.
yeah. True. Yeah.
So,
So
and
true.
so that's what you saw 4 years coming up, and you
Yeah.
went like, wow, the other 12 went by like that,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a flash.
Yeah.
So,
I was
so
there. I was there. I took them to all their games and their, Boy Scout activities and stuff. But I think mentally, I felt like I needed to be there more present in their lives. And yeah, so it was
so
different when I was a business owner. I was practice owner. I was, I had 4-day work week, but I worked 24/7. Mentally, I worked all the time, and that's what I needed a break from. So
and so you did that. You basically you sold the practice. Did you stop practicing, or did you just do a couple of days a week here and there? What was that the
so
path then?
it was around the same time. I One of my colleagues offered. She was building her second practice in a small town near me, Lafayette, and she offered me that if I could run that practice for her, and I took that opportunity about 1 or 2 days a week. So that kept me in touch with dentistry, and it gave me a freedom of building someone's practice. It was not my practice, but I had a freedom to build that practice for her, and that was a good opportunity that kept me in touch with dentistry. So I did that, and I'm still practicing at the same location. But it was around the same time, maybe a few years before that, in 2012. I, along with my husband, took my dream trip. Okay, we both of us, for the first time, took 2 years off from work and we traveled east. We went to Himalaya. My dream, my dream was to hike to the foot of Everest. We took a hike to the Mount Everest base camp, and that was a life changing moment for me. My love for hiking first started when I was in high school in India. I grew up in I grew up in a middle class family. My mom was geography teacher, and my parents always encouraged us to travel. We couldn't go too far because we didn't have financial ability, but we traveled to many places within India, which is a very diverse country. It exposed me to diversity in the great country, taught me to be open with different cultures and different food and all of that. But when I was in high school, we took some mountain climbing and hiking trips through the youth clubs that I was associated with. And the biggest one was a 3 week trip. This was when I was in dental school in India. We had a summer vacation and we took 3 weeks off and we went to the Indian Himalaya. And that was my first exposure to high altitude trekking and the magnificence of the highest mountain range of the world was just amazing. And I promised myself to return to the Himalaya, because I was in college at that time. I didn't have much time. And, life happened and I moved 10,000 miles away from the Himalaya after that. So,
Yes, yeah. They were
so
not in their backyard anymore.
yeah, not
So
in my backyard anymore. But in the United States, being in California, I discovered Yosemite, High Sierras, Rockies, the Grand Canyon, the Zion, the slots of Utah. It's so many national parks and forests here. So my adventurous soul just continued to hike away, and we would take our little kids, and they grew up with it. They both joined Boy Scouts, and they both turned out to be super outdoorsy. So every break or long weekend, my husband and I, along with our two boys, whenever we get a little break or vacations, we would just take the trips to the nature and wilderness. And on the longer trips, on longer vacations, we would go to Peru. We would hike Inca Trail. We've gone to Argentina and Chile and Patagonia. um, all of these this hiking related or trekking or mountain climbing trips that we had taken. But on back of my brain, I knew I still wanted to go back to Himalaya. I haven't been since like all these years since I moved here. And this time I wanted to travel there with my husband and my boys. And but when I went to Mount Everest base camp in 2012, um, I mean, when you hike into other mountain ranges and when you climb a mountain, you are, even if it takes a day or two, like I've climbed Kilimanjaro in Africa, right, with my boys. And when you climb Kilimanjaro, you hike up 5 6 days, but when you do that, you're on top of the world because you're at the peak. It doesn't happen in Himalaya. When I went to Mount Everest base camp, we hiked for about 8 or 9 days to get to the base camp. You're at the base of something, right? There's still high peaks. So it's just the range is really, really tall. And they're
yeah, it's
very,
all around
it's
you
all
are
around
still
you.
gigantic mountains. As you said,
Exactly.
Kilimanjaro sort of
It's just
sticks
standalone.
up all by itself, and the rest of the
Yeah.
applicant plain is out behind, all around you.
Yeah,
So
but they make me realize how insignificant I am, and they inspire me to work harder. And every time I take these trips, I come back recharged, and I would I would be inspired to push my limits and to break the boundaries. And it's all about constant and never ending improvement, right? Isn't it? So,
yes,
like I said, when I traveled to Africa, I took my 12 and 15-year-old there. And my 12-year-old, I was worried about him, and we trained really hard to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And we learned many lessons while we were training. But when we were there, the most important lesson that we learned was mind over matter. Your mind always fails first before your body. Yeah. So the secret is to train your mind to work for you and not against you. And mountains have taught me that. So, but after talking about that trips, when I came back to California, I wanted to share my experience with everybody. So I wanted my friends to go there because I couldn't describe it. They had to go and feel it. So I took another trip there with my close friends, and some of the other friends sent their own friends, and I couldn't just keep going because everybody wanted to go now. So what I did was I took a couple trips after that, and I built a team of Sherpas in Nepal. Um, and these are the Sherpas that were very humble, they're helpful, they're super trained to deal with high altitude sickness and mountain sickness and emergencies and so forth. So then I would just send them with my Sherpa team. So
So this is
eventually,
this is. I'm sorry. I want to because we jumped to Kilimanjaro with your kids and the training for that. But
yeah,
but you've been back. You have when you came back from the Himalayas. You said to your friends, "You have to go. I can't
yeah,
tell you about it." So
yeah,
you were that was what you arranged was
yeah,
multiple trips for them, and then finding the Sherpas and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's high. It's the
It's
altitude
high.
is crazy. I mean, I have problems when I'm skiing at 10 or 12,000 feet,
Yeah,
and that's like, that's the bottom of the
yeah, yeah.
Himalayas, right? That's not even base camp.
No,
What is
it's
base
not.
camp?
So Mount Everest Base Camp is the base camp where all the climbers would set their base.
Yeah,
And when they climb Mount Everest, there are four different camps after that: Camp 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it takes good, about they set their base at the base camp, which is at 18,000 feet of elevation,
yeah,
and Mount Everest is at 29 feet. So from the base camp, they train, they acclimate. So they would go to camp 1, and then they would come back and acclimate again, and then they would go to camp 2, and then acclimate again. So they would just stay there and keep taking these trips till their body get acclimated. Okay. And then they would see the open window where the weather is favorable, and then they would do the summit push from the base camp. But people like camp there and stay there for a month to get acclimated and to train to climb when they try to summit the mountain. So
yeah.
that's the
They
base
keep
camp.
working their way up. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's because your blood has to change,
yeah, but that's
or
the
you're just
base
gonna
camp.
die, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But anyway,
uh,
so when I came back, I just made I registered my adventure travel company in California because I it's I formally take people to uh, to the to the Indian, Nepalese, Tibetan, and Bhutanese Himalaya. So I now have a team of Sherpa there. So that was my little passion project. I go there almost every year, and I haven't gone last year since the pandemic, but I have these people. They're proud of my Nepalese team. They're humble. They're trained. They went through I'll tell you, they went through extremely difficult time last year during the pandemic because the travel shut down, and these people rely on tourism. My
yeah,
kids who have, and my kids, both of my kids who have hiked in the in the Nepalese Himalayan range with me, they knew these people and they were heartbroken. What my kids did with they started a crowdfunding last year to help them with basic food and water supplies, and with the help of our networks of friends and family donations. um, and it was a crowdfunding, so it kind of we grew it through social media. They raised about $12,000 to help these families, and dollar goes a long way there.
I was gonna
So
say that goes pretty far
that goes
in
pretty far.
Nepal.
And
Yeah,
yeah, so my team was able to survive last year through those donations that my kids collected. And whenever I go there, there's basic oral health care in the Sherpa community in the mountains is just not there, because there's no the Kathmandu or the towns, the bigger metro cities would get a lot of donations and international help, but the people who live in the mountain, they have no access to health oral health care. And so I would take some basic dental supplies for them during whenever I go there to help them out during whenever I take my trips there, which is pretty much every year. That part is rewarding, but that's my passion project that I do on the
yeah,
side. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I imagine you're doing a bunch of extractions.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh,
That's the easiest thing to do when you can't restore and you don't have ability to have the great labs.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause
Unfortunately, but
you don't
no,
have a portable chair with you
no,
or anything
no.
like that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Well, so let's transition to you meeting the ultimate dental practice management Sherpa. Uh,
Yeah.
so talk
Let's
about that.
Yeah. So what happened was I also started practicing at Fortune Practice, and I was doing and Laura Boone and Julia, they coach our practice, and I also, in between, while I was in the transition, I took a lot of few seminars. I met Bernie Stoles. And I got exposed to Fortune's coaching style, and lot of those things came, like, it sounded familiar through Tony Robbins books that I read. Some of the principles was very inspiring from those things that I read, and I thought that I juggled the idea of being a coach at that time, but I wanted to wait till, my kids are grown enough. And finally, during the last year, in the middle of the pandemic, I pulled the trigger and I decided to join the Fortune team as an executive coach. And I'm very thankful to all my coaches at Fortune Management for showing me the entire new world of leadership, communication, how to be the best version of myself. So this was a completely new world for me, and I'm enjoying it just as much as I'm enjoying clinical dentistry. I still practice at both of my locations. I have 3-day clinical practice, and I coach few people, and whoever my goal is to help my colleagues through their leadership journey, um, and to help them out build their practices. And yeah, that was, and not make the same mistakes that I made early on in my career. So
Yeah, that is what you want to be able to do is go back and say you don't have to make these mistakes, right?
no,
This has
no.
been done better,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so and so you're still practicing in
Hmm.
a couple of different practices at this point,
Yes, yes.
and
I practice at a couple different practices at this point, but I also wanted to mention, the people that have inspired me along the way in my journey of 20 years of my career. I just cannot thank enough to my mentors. I'm a big believer in mentorship, and I would just tell anyone that if you don't have a mentor, get one. Mentors are so much helpful. It just started out at in my mentors at NYU for making me take the Facebook records and mount my models for single crown, and I hated it at that time. But when I appreciated a lot when I learned the importance of occlusion at Spear Education. And when I moved to California, my mentor in Fremont, where I own my practice, he inspired me to take leadership roles at the California Dental Association. My mentors at the ADA, American Dental Association's Institute for Diversity in Leadership program, that I was accepted, and they guided me through the important project. And I can't thank them enough. My project was to connect the faculty of. It was all about the oral systemic connections. And what I did was I connected the faculty of the University of Pacific Dental School of Dentistry with the Stanford School of Medicine. And what we did was we created the customized 6-module curriculum for the Stanford School of Medicine students, highlighting oral systemic connections. And who knew that this collaboration that I had started about 8 years ago is now helping the UOP dental students being able to take the hospital rotations at the Stanford School of Medicine. So it continued my project, my small project that I started with as a part of my Institute for Diversity in Leadership grew into something bigger. So that's very rewarding.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great thing
yeah,
to be able to do for the people in school who are
Yeah,
in dental
yeah.
school to be able to get exposed to the medical side. And, we have to make more progress on the oral systemic connection.
A huge,
Uh,
huge deal. And the medical college curriculum only has 2 to 4 hours of oral health education. And it's not that we don't want to teach them to be dentists, but it's kind of sad that there's a huge gap between both the professions. And I'm hoping that the new work and some of the more inter-university collaborations that are happening right now will kind of are gearing towards bridging that gap. But there is a lot more work need to be done. I think University of Washington Dental and Harvard Medicine are bridging. The NYU Dental School and Nursing School at the NYU have collaborated. The UOP dental students are taking the hospital rotations at Stanford. So some of these things are happening now, which is really, really good to see. But the ADA diversity in leadership program also opened the door for me to volunteer at the California Dental Association. And since then, I served the CDA in various capacities. And volunteering at the CDA kind of helped me um, push myself out of my comfort zone and look at the dentistry at not just the business of helping a few patients, but as a profession which is responsible to take care of the oral health of the community. So I'm thankful for all of my mentors in this constant encouragement. There were many, many people that have helped me with my journey throughout the way. And yeah, and
that's
and
great.
yeah, and lastly, the all my colleagues at Fortune Management and you, Fred, and Bernie, and everyone that I work with now are so inspiring. Yeah,
Well, this is a truly a remarkable career, and I see so much more that you could accomplish as time goes on because of your uh, desire to take on more. And that, but you've elevated your engagement, and I think becoming a coach is going to be the next step that informs you and expands your reach even more. I
yeah,
think so many dentists could learn so much from you in just your you never get trapped in a channel and say, okay, this is the way to go. You
right.
go, well, what else could I do, or what have I not gotten to? I've got to get back to the Himalayas. I've got to get involved in UOP and get them going with
Yeah,
Stanford. These are interesting accomplishments, and of course now becoming a Fortune coach. So,
yeah.
but the other thing is now you've checked another box, which is a podcast with me. So, you know,
That's a big box checking. Fred.
so it, and of course you're very inspiring to female dentists by showing them the tremendous option list that is possible in this career.
Yeah.
And I hope you're able to communicate that to a lot of women. I hope a lot of women get to hear this. What would be if you were to encapsulate your message to women considering dentistry or going to dental school? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I have trained myself to look at the brighter side of everything first. So being a female dentist has its own perks. My patients think that I'm much gentler and calmer than their previous dentists who were male. And that being said, as a female, I've also felt lack of trust by some people within the profession. And I think all of us feel that at some point. But I've also felt that I had to work harder in some areas than my male colleagues to be at the same level. But like I say, look at the perks. The being a female and minority comes with its own challenges. But all in all, being a female and being a mom, I feel that I have this amazing power and ability to multitask, and I feel like I can juggle a lot more than my male colleagues. And I also feel more motivated to do things because I have to do more, balancing the family life and being part of my children's upbringing. I have ability to juggle a lot more, and that I think that's the female dentist or female would relate to those things. So I don't think it's a setback. I think we have this amazing power and ability that we have to recognize. So I've never let any race or gender related obstacles block my way. All in all, like, I'm happy and content with what I've done with my life, and I think everybody else should look at the brighter side. What I would suggest is, like, you have to love yourself. You have to embrace your imperfections and identify and nurture your uniqueness, um, and find out what you're good at, and nurture that, and make bold decisions with your life, and don't be scared, of taking big steps.
That's a great message, and a great place to end this podcast. I don't think any message could be more powerful than that. So thank you, Dr. Patel, for your time and your insights. And it's been great hearing about your remarkable journey. And everyone, I hope this was inspiring to you. It was fascinating to me. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe and pass it around. Tell people about it. If you don't like it, subscribe anyway and pass it around, because somebody else will benefit from it. But Hema, thank you so much for taking this time and telling your story. It's a wonderful story, and everyone's going to benefit from it.
Thank you so much, Fred, for having me here. I'm the biggest fan of your podcast. I've listened to all the episodes, and it's my honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, that's our episode with Dr. Hema Patel. And for all of you out there, keep on becoming remarkable.
Thank you. Bye-bye.